Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Senator Bernie Sanders and Elon Musk have both criticized the Pentagon's $886 billion budget, citing its failures to pass 7 consecutive audits. Sanders highlighted the Pentagon's inability to track billions in expenditures, while Musk echoed similar sentiments about inefficiencies in government spending. Their bipartisan criticism could spark increased scrutiny and oversight of the defense spending bill. And this is some of the things that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to get into with the Department of Government Efficiency. And they're going to cut the waste, they're going to cut the fat, they're going to see what federal organizations they can combine, again, to get to this $2 trillion cut or savings to decrease the debt that we have in America. And they're going to treat this like a sprint, almost like a 2-year sprint. I know no one has ever heard of a 2-year sprint, more like a 2-week, but in this case, because of the complexities of this government and how much government we have. Now, me personally, I don't know enough about government to state that we have too much government, but I could say, or will say rather, that we have too many federal entities, and a lot of those can be combined and be departments of one another. So that's important as well. As the U.S. faced a potential government shutdown, Elon Musk is wielding his influence to shape the conversation to fiscal responsibility. Musk criticized lawmakers for outrageous spending, urging financial prudence. His stance has resonated with conservative factions contemplating bipartisan efforts to pass a funding bill and raise the likelihood of a shutdown. And again, I don't believe nobody should ever want a government shutdown. Some people use this as a tool or weapon for political expediency to get favor of their party, that, oh, we're the ones who brought us out of this slump of the government shutdown. Oh, we would never allow the government to shut down. They use this, however, they use it for evil, they use it for good. It just depends on what day it is when it comes to politics. Whether they're Republican or Democrats, liberal or conservatives. I've seen both political parties, with the exception of the Independence Party, because they never really held any power, to use this in their favor. So again, this is always a good thing where thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans are still going to be paid during the holiday season going into next year. Fulton County District and, Attorney Fani Willis have been removed from the Georgia election. If you guys are not familiar with Fani Willis, I know you guys watched her trial when she was on trial with her lover. I'm sorry. But she has been removed from the Georgia election interference case involving Donald Trump. The appeals court ruled her removal was necessary due to a prior romantic relationship with a member of her trial team. I know they were trialing a lot, trials and tribulations, raising conflict of interest concerns. The case has now been referred to the prosecuting attorney council of Georgia to appoint a new prosecutor, potentially delaying the proceedings altogether. And I said this last year, and I'm going to keep telling Fani Willis the same thing. Leave Donald Trump alone. Donald Trump is either going to affect you directly or indirectly. And no one thought in a million years that Donald Trump would win the presidency. And I believe that the Democrats overplayed their hand with a lot of the rhetoric when it comes to liberalism, when it comes to where they kind of transform the term woke, okay? And that means a lot of intersectionality and a lot of things that are being allowed in and out of books. I just saw a book the other day of how there was 2 men on the front cover, and one of the men says, "There's a baby in my husband's stomach." And this was a children's book. So again, they have allowed that in past laws to protect that, even on a minor stage. And when I mean minor, I don't mean small, I mean minors, like your children. So again, when you allow the debauchery inside of the child's life before the frontal lobe can even develop, then there's no conversation. That political party needs not to be in power until they change that rhetoric, because it's harming people more so than they know. There's been a lot of minors, there's been a lot of underage, under 18, under 21 teenagers and adolescents who were getting these sex changed, and then 5-10 years later stating, you know what, I should have never did that because I feel differently now. Yeah, because you changed their lives as they were kids. This is sinister. Federal authorities have issued warnings against using SMS-based two-factor authentication due to accessibility to interception by hackers. Breaches have demonstrated how malicious actors can hijack text messages, compromising user accounts. Officials recommended using encrypted messaging apps and authentication apps or hardware security keys as more secure alternatives. At this point, they're going to make an AI security. Like someone right now, every time I think of it, I wish I knew the know-how. I wish I had the source code tools. I wish I knew how to write program. I could probably just get AI to write me a program about a securing AI app. Again, the world of AI is wild. And what I'm telling you right now is the SMS code, you're going to start needing this additional encryption, this additional securities, where someone right now is creating an app that you can download on your phone. It's going to be an AI security app, and AI is going to somehow predict or stop or do whatever it does, predictive analysis of certain attacks and whatever sort of spam it may be or virus it may be. They have so many names for virus. I used to know all of this stuff when I was taking computer literacy class, but I know none of it now. But nonetheless, the world of viruses, let alone a malicious software, is even growing. So with the positive and the negative when it comes to that whole security world, believe me, someone is definitely creating something for you guys. But again, this is what the federal government are telling, the citizens to be very wary of and to make sure you secure yourself at all times, because again, technology is moving at a very, very rapid pace. The Federal Aviation Administration, also known as the FAA, they have imposed temporary flight restrictions on drones in parts of New Jersey, including Jersey City and Camden. The restrictions will remain in place from December 18th to January 17th of next year. In a rare move, the FAA warned that drones posing an imminent security threat could face deadly force, meaning they're just going to shoot them down. As a countermeasure, this action reflects growing concerns about unauthorized drone activities in high security areas. And this is what I was referring to, that eventually, because the citizens of these areas, New Jersey, New York, and some places in California, that they were crying about all these zones, all these drones in the air. You can see here, a lot of those lights were drones operating in patterns. And what the U.S. has found out, that a lot of these drones were adjacent, or they were flying over military bases, 17 to be exact. They were flying over 17 military bases that were closely adjacent to Chinese farmland. I don't know who made that connection. Okay, I don't know who made that connection, but again, the connection need to be made. Not stating that they're doing anything nefarious, they're doing anything illegal, but I think it's important to know that we're not true allies with China. If anything, we're kind of just equal partners in trade, if there's an equalness, and that's why President-elect Donald Trump is going to impose 25 to 35% tariffs on China, because again, he wants them to pay their fair share. And what I noticed is, when Democrats was running, they were always going after the rich, the wealthy, people who make over $400,000 a year. And they would say, we're going to go after the very wealthy of them all. People who are making $400,000 plus a year, and they're going to pay their fair share. And then all the while, we found out when the Republicans started to run that not only are you paying your fair share, but the countries we do business with are not paying their fair share. So again, this is important that we know too, because a lot of things are coming out to be very, very true of what the right have been saying for quite some time now. We also understand that Chinese influence in the U.S. local politics is drawing heightened scrutiny, rather. Reports reveal that Chinese operatives are targeting mayors, governors, and state legislators to sway local policy decisions. Methods include forming a relationship with officials, offering economic incentives, and launching information campaigns, because in one incident, a New York man pleaded guilty to running a secret police station in Manhattan's Chinatown, allegedly assisting Chinese authorities in targeting dissidents. This is crazy. So we have all this intel, we have all this information, and I'm pretty sure the CIA domestic branch, the FBI. We probably have all these federal agents who know this information, and now this is coming out. Why is this important? Because when Donald Trump was running for his first term and during his first presidency, people kept talking about Russian collusion, how Russia was playing a role in our politics as well as China. And all the while we had concrete proof that China was running some of these propaganda mills in policy and trying to shift and change U.S. policies, either from the right to the left, whatever suits their needs, whether it be, I guess, strategic war, it could be economics, it could be natural resources, because China is always looking for more natural resources. I mean, they have one of the highly populated countries in the world next to India, over 1 billion people. And that's why a lot of Chinese has actually moved to Africa. And as I would say, they don't have what we know as traditional slavery. They're now dealing in economic slavery because a lot of the Chinese own some of the ports in China. I believe that Ghana just built a port for the Chinese that the Chinese will own and operate. As well, they conduct possibly over 90% of the mining and building the roads and infrastructures of Africa. So they have a great investment in Africa. And believe me, when we went over to Ghana, I think this was about 2 or 3 years ago, my wife and I, my son, we went over to Ghana and we saw, I didn't count them on my hand, but we saw a good number of Asian folk over there that we were just so surprised in these very non-Asian areas, so to speak, because again, Ghana is over 90% Black. And when you're driving through some of the townships and some of the, places, everybody is essentially Black. And then you just pop up in a neighborhood or a certain corridor, and then there's a whole Asian community. It was just kind of weird not being in America and then seeing something constantly so long, and then boom, one street, you have one demographic of people, and then the next street is back to 90% Black Ghanaian. So again, it was just astonishing to see that dynamic. It was very significant for me to see that dynamic. President-elect Donald Trump has proposed abolishing the U.S. debt ceiling, arguing that it creates unnecessary political brinkmanship and instability. Trump described the move as the smartest thing Congress could do, framing it as always a way to streamline government operations and avoid constant partisanship battles over debt limits. This proposal marks a shift from traditional Republican fiscal policies and could face significant resistance in Congress. I'm still trying to figure out how he can do that. How can Donald Trump get rid of the debt ceiling? How can you wipe away debt? Because essentially, debt is a piece of paper, right? When you have the US dollars, when you have the US notes, just read on your dollar. I wish I had a dollar bill so I can show you guys exactly what I'm referring to. But that's all it is, IOU. Have you ever called into your bank or to your loan shark or a personal loan that you may have, and you ask them, what can I do to get rid of this bill? And they can reduce the bill. Some people put these nasty grams on your credit report, like charged off debt. Then other ones say, well, let's make a deal. You owe $5,000. You're stating that you only have $2,800. What if I told you if you paid us $2,800, that will pay off your account, and we'll take this negative mark that you were late on your bill? They've made those deals because that's how essentially I raised my credit. My credit is over 800, and I've done all sorts of deals. And in other places, they're not so friendly to deal when it comes to those things. What I'm basically trying to say is this possible that Donald Trump can essentially wipe away the debt ceiling? Yeah, because when Nixon was in office, he changed the backing of the American dollar from gold to IOUs, or as we know it today as fiat currency, which is basically saying I owe you and I'm going to pay you back at this percentage. And last but not least, again, I go to the Chinese bars that they own a lot of our debts by the way of our government bonds. So again, we should follow all these. If there's smoke, there's fire. If there's dots, we have to connect them. Thank you all for joining me here this evening. You guys have a great and wonderful night. This is Black Logic.